You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
What a beautiful day for horses in the morning.
You are listening to the #1 horse podcast in the world. Here is your entertaining look at the horse world and the people in it.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am Glenn the Geek in Ocala, Florida.
And I'm Ashley Winch in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And you're listening to Horses in the Morning on Horse Radio Network for Monday, April 29th, episode 3420 by WERM Flooring. Good morning, Horse World.
You heard that right. It's Monday. The first day of a fabulous week of shows on Horses in the Morning. So saddle up and ride along. We promise to help you get through your week.
Well, that's right. We're going to help you get through your week, and Ashley's going to help us to start the week. Jamie will be back on Wednesday. She's traveling home from Kentucky, and it looks like she had a fantastic weekend. We'll talk more about that in a minute. On the show today, Jamie chatted with John Nicholson of Old Friends Equine and sent a recording of that, so we'll play that for you. Ashley's going to get in the baby mood with Amanda from Equine Dreaming in Gallop and Grow. I guess you're in the baby mood anyway. You're only like 2 months away, so it's like...
Yeah, 10 weeks. I just realized that this morning, and my entire nursery is still in boxes, Glenn.
Well, Jennifer, when I was talking to you the other day, heard me say 2 months, and she panicked because she'll be gone. So, in Horses in History, I'm doing one today. We're going to learn about the colorful life of a man who started the Kentucky Derby 150 years ago, Meriwether Lewis Clark. And yes, that's the grandson of Lewis and Clark. And plus, he had a colorful history and involves guns and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to talk about him. I originally was going to do this Horses in History about the beginning of the Kentucky Derby. And the more I dug into him, I was like, I'm going to do it about him. So we'll talk about that a little later in the show. But first, we wanted to give our thoughts and prayers to everybody over the weekend that was impacted by the tornadoes. There were over 150 tornadoes over the weekend. They expect it might even be over 200. There, the first day hit Nebraska, the second day Oklahoma. By the way, I wanted to let everybody know that it's written to us. Jamie's farm is fine. The closest tornado to her was about 2 miles away. I know you even mentioned that this morning, Ashley, that you saw Norman had a bunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I one of our auditors put a screenshot up, and there was 10 or 15 just littered across Norman. And I know Jamie was probably panicking even more because she wasn't there. Or
she was drinking and didn't even know about it. It was one of the two. So, yeah, she's fine. The farm is fine. Obviously, she was there. But Chad and Lucas were home. There were tons of horse farms that were affected by this. I saw them popping up on my Facebook feed. One in particular was an EF3 tornado that went through Quail Run Horse Center in Elkhorn, Nebraska. And that was during a hunter-jumper show. An A show. There were no human casualties there. Horses were severely injured and some were being triaged. Imagine being in a horse show when that happens. Some of the show barns and the indoor and lots of the infrastructure were destroyed. It was a mess. They or friends of theirs immediately did a GoFundMe, which seems to be what we do now. And I'm happy to report that the GoFundMe had a goal of $10,000 and it's raised $68,000 over the weekend for this. So, yeah, the farm was called Quail Run Horse Center. If you want to donate, just search for that on GoFundMe and you'll find that. It was quite a weekend and very scary for a lot of people. And I also follow a lot of the RV pages, and there were just so many that the RVs were destroyed. And, that's a terrifying thing, being in an RV when one hits.
I can't imagine.
So our best to all of them. We're thinking about all of you. Well, it was exciting, and they avoided all the weather and actually had beautiful weather in Kentucky at the Rolex Land Rover Defender 3-day event. And it was especially good for the Brits over the weekend. The 5-star was exciting down to the last show jump, and one of the last jumps, actually. Coming into show jumping on Sunday, it was Tom McEwen on J.L. Dublin. He was leading. Also in second place was Brit Yasmin Ingham. And then also Oliver Townend was in third. And I got to tell you that things shook up. there was only one rail between them, between first, second, and third, by the way, all Brits, by the way, leading in first, second, and third. And Oliver came in first and went with a clean round, and then the other two each pulled a rail. So Oliver Townend ended up winning. It was his 4th Kentucky win, his 100th 5-star start, and he's still seated as the world's number 1. So, yeah, it was a good weekend for Ollie, and he'll go on probably to ride in badminton next week and has a chance of winning that too. So, Ollie's horse was Cooley Rosalind, and last year at the 5-star was the first time we saw that horse in the United States, a 9-year-old, and he had won the Scottish Grand National, or born to a dam that had won the Scottish Grand National. And that's where the galloping and speed came from, and also a show-jumping sire. So good breeding there, and probably going to be his horse going forward that you're going to want to watch. And came over also because wanted to have that horse, in sight for the Olympics and having the selectors watch that horse for the Paris Olympics. And I would say he's a good shot now.
No kidding.
Yeah. So the show jumping course, the statistics there, it yields 6 clear rounds for 26% clear rate and 9% double clear. And by the way, that's about average. Which it doesn't seem like a lot, does
No, it doesn't. It sounds like, woof, that's tough. But that it's tough. That's
the idea.
Why it's fun.
That's why it's a 5-star. Every thoroughbred entered in the 5-star completed and in the top half of the field.
We love to see it.
Yeah,
we love to
cool?
see it. That's
cool.
Awesome. And I saw some really cool coverage on some retired racehorses that were competing as well.
So the way it rounded out, Great Britain did very well, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Germany in 4th. Lauren Nicholson was in 5th for the United States. Bruce Davidson Buck was in 6th for the United States. Then Monica Spencer from New Zealand. And then Liz Holliday actually was in 8th. And then we had Germany and Jenny Brannigan in 10th. So we did have some place in the top 10, which was really cool. And then in the 4-star, which also ran this weekend, Will Coleman and Boyd Martin dominated the top 5. So it was Will Coleman, then Boyd Martin, then Will Coleman, then Boyd Martin. So they were competing for the top 5 for sure. And then Liz Holliday also did very well. She had 3 in the top 10. So Liz Holliday rode a lot of horses this weekend.
No kidding.
And of course, she was host of the eventing radio show that we had here in the network for a long time. So way to go, Liz.
Yay.
Jamie also did very well. She met a ton of listeners. I kept seeing pictures and pictures. First of all, her dinner she had, there must have been, 20 or more people there. There was a whole lot of people at the dinner that she did on Friday night. And then listeners kept finding her, I guess, all weekend and posting pictures. So it was really cool that she got some love over the weekend, and I'm sure a great time. So we have 2 auditor birthdays today, Kendra Gale, and, I always get in trouble for saying names wrong. So this person's first name is Alex, and we're going to get a little help with the last name.
Piaget.
Oh, I bet. Yes, I was going to say I can say it. Piaget, it's French.
That's right.
Piaget.
There we go. So I didn't get it wrong. I'm very proud of myself. I can use Google, and it works. From now on, I'm just going to have Google say their last names. And
that's cheating.
Then I'll never be wrong. We do have a brand new auditor as well, Susanna Schwartz. So thank you, Susanna, for joining the party. If you haven't found the Auditor Room, just search for HRN Auditors on Facebook. Now, you're doing a Buck-Off today, and I don't have Buck-Off music yet. So, for those that didn't join us Friday, explain what a Buck-Off is.
So it's my new segment that I created because I never feel like I have a good daily whinny. So I'm just going to talk about things that I'm angry about and they can buck off.
Okay, I'll have to get a sound effect for that, but I don't have one right now. So this one would apply to your buck off today, though.
Yes, and I know.
You are one pathetic loser.
That applies to who you're giving your buck off to today.
It really does. And I know a lot of our auditors feel the same way. I've seen your guys' posts about Apple Podcasts. So if you're Android, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podcast Addict, Fast forward 30, 60 seconds. We'll see you on the other side. This is for my Apple Podcast peeps. I, too, have been having issues getting the show in my feed. So what I want you to do...
Yeah, let me explain. So what's been happening is some episodes of some shows, not just ours, but some shows on Apple Podcasts just aren't showing up, and they keep saying, "Where are you guys? You're not putting it out." Well, we are putting it out. Okay, go ahead.
Promise. Yeah. So I want you first and foremost, go ahead and hard restart your phone. None of us do it enough. So that's always going to be your first solution. Once you do that, I want you to go into your Apple Podcast app. At the top, look for search, type in Horses in the Morning, click once you see that in the search bar underneath. It's going to load. Click Horses in the Morning, the show. Don't click an episode. Now I want you to put your finger on the Horses in the Morning logo and pull down, and you'll see a spinny wheel at the top. That's going to pull in all of the latest episodes immediately.
From what I understand, this happened after the last update to the operating system?
Since about April 2nd. And it's been happening on my app too. So it's not just anyone. It's just Apple.
Does Apple intentionally try and break podcasting every time they do an update?
I'm an Apple girly, and Glenn always gave me a hard time. I'm sitting here on my MacBook recording, and they do not do podcasts well, guys.
They were the leader in podcasts.
They really were.
They started podcasts.
Yeah.
The only way, a lot of the players that you listen to your podcasts on pull from Apple's feed.
Yep.
So I don't know why they, a couple of years ago, just decided that they were going to screw up podcasting. I don't know.
It's a big pain in the butt. And we wanted to mention, you can always get a different player. So this is going to be a new app on your phone that you use to listen to.
No, I'm saying get a new player. Apple's been screwing up so often that it's time to just abandon ship, get a new player. Two of the ones I recommend are Pocket Casts, and I use Podcast Addict. I really like Podcast Addict. Now, there's a learning curve with anyone you're going to get. There's 1,000 players out there. Get anyone but Apple. Just they keep breaking it, and then the Apple people are mad, and it's not my fault. And then we're missing downloads because Apple keeps screwing it up. So,
it's true.
Apple, fix it.
Fuck off.
That's right. We really do need a sound effect for that. It's a guy screaming as the horse is whinnying or something. WERM Flooring now does your trailer roof. Leaky roofs are a very common problem in horse trailers and RVs. WERM Flooring's revolutionary silicone-based coating creates a barrier against heat and wet. First, it seals your roof and stops the leaks before they start. That's one of the biggest problems that we have with horse trailers, especially with living quarters. And second, it reflects back nearly 90% of the nasty UV rays, keeping your trailer or barn, you can get this done in barn roofs too, 60-degree coolers on a blistering day. So ditch the duct tape and buckets and invest in long-lasting peace of mind with Seal and Chill. That's what it's called. It's $7.50 per square foot, and that's a steal for a cooler, drier, happier trailer or RV. So that means also happier horses and people. Head on over to wormflooring.com to find a dealer near you. They have dealers for their flooring inside the trailer, and they also have dealers for the roof. They're not necessarily the same dealers, so you can check it out on the website and see whichever one you want for the roof or the flooring. Go to wormflooring.com. Tell us who's coming up next.
Next, we have Amanda Miguel joining us, and big thanks to our friend Joy of Retired Racehorse Radio for recommending Amanda come on the show. She sent me links to two businesses that Amanda runs, Equine Dreaming and Gallop and Grow, both things that I, as a pregnant / mommy-to-be, need in my life and wanted to share with you guys. So let's get Amanda on the horn. And thank you for joining us, Amanda. So as I understand, you run two kind of horsey-based businesses, Equine Dreaming and Gallop and Grow, which I've already placed an order through. And my first question for you, before we get into the business side of things, is how do you have time to ride?
You know what? That is honestly a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself, actually.
Where are you located? Tell us about your
Hinckley Equestrian Center. I have 2 thoroughbreds. One is a 22-year-old. I full leased her from my trainer, actually. She used to be a prelim eventer. She's trained in dressage now through Prix St. George. Amazing, amazing horse. Definitely my heart horse by far. And then I also just got this past fall a 4-year-old off the track thoroughbred who actually just turned 5 on Saturday.
Oh, happy birthday.
He's adorable. His name is Obi, after Obi-Wan for Star Wars. I let my husband name him, actually.
That's a good trick to get husbands on board. I like that. I see you,
know
Amanda.
It really is, honestly. So he's currently in full training with my trainer. I am an adult amateur rider, and I just wanted to make sure that he had the absolute best start possible. But he is going to be my next up-and-coming dressage horse.
Oh, how cool. So you're focused on dressage with both horses?
Yes, I am.
Fabulous.
That is definitely my passion.
Very cool. I love dressage too. It's such a challenge, but in the best way.
Exactly.
So now that we know you're a tried and true horse girl, the most important part of the interview.
Yes.
Tell us what inspired you to start Equine Dreaming, and tell us just about what Equine Dreaming is. And I also want to make sure that you mention about who you donate a portion of your profits to, because I was really excited to learn more about your company.
Yeah, so Equine Dreaming was kind of created about a little over a year ago when my 22-year-old thoroughbred actually tore her suspensory ligament. I always used to joke around and say every trip to the barn has to include a Starbucks. So I would always stop at Starbucks on my way to the barn. And once she injured herself, I really had to look at my finances in order to really give her the best recovery possible. So I started going to local coffee shops and just kind of chatting with different roasters to kind of figure out how they source their beans and kind of really do what they do. And it kind of got me down a rabbit hole of research, and there Equine Dreaming was born. I was able to source beans in from Guatemala, Ethiopia, and Brazil, and kind of just play around to see which ones I liked the most, because for me, it was about having really good coffee without having to spend a lot of money.
Sure.
So that's kind of how Equine Dreaming was really born. My horse hurt herself and I needed to save some pennies. And I thought to myself, like, well, I feel like every equestrian deserves to have really, really good coffee, but on a horse girl budget.
I love that.
Can I jump in for a second? You mentioned your husband.
Yeah.
So now you have horses, which are expensive. You have vet bills, which are expensive. And then you tell him, and I'm going to start a company, which is expensive. How did all this go over?
You know what? I'm not going to lie. My husband is the most supportive man in the entire world. I started riding actually when I was 8 years old, but when I went to college, I completely stopped. I did not actually start riding again until March of 2020, and it was his idea to go back and start taking a few lessons. So I started taking a few lessons here and there, and all of a sudden, as a horse girl who used to own horses, you can't just ride once a week. So I was able to ride Madison a few times, and that's kind of how that fully started. And it was really his idea. I don't know if he realized that it was like a full-time job in the beginning, but here we are now, and he's super supportive. He goes to all of my horse shows. He calls himself my groom.
We do a horse husband episode once a month. I need to get him on and find out if the story's the same on his side.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, sorry.
Absolutely.
No, that's a great question, Glenn. So I have to ask if you had any, so I'm a big wine enthusiast and I've been to plenty of, classes. And did you have a passion for coffee before this, or you're just like, that one tastes good?
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I was like, that one tastes good.
I love that. Is so cool.
I always really loved coffee, and I loved those unique recipes that you would find. And when I started Equine Dreaming, I've never really made those at home by myself before. I always obviously would just go to a coffee shop and get one. So once I started doing this, I kind of really was able to start playing with recipes and creating my own creamers and cold foams and things like that. And it just got to be really fun.
That I love hearing that. And so you also donate a portion of your profits to a really special group. Tell me about that and how you decided to give them some of your profits.
Yeah, so 10% goes to Horses and Heroes, and they are a really phenomenal organization that focuses on taking in veterans who really deeply struggle with PTSD. And they bring them in and they do this 45-day transformation where they're doing everything with the horses and the ranch and everything that it entails. And, these guys aren't coming as horse people. So throughout all of this, they're really able to learn about who they are and kind of combat those emotions that are really just kind of holding them back to rejoining society. My husband is actually a veteran who struggled with PTSD when he left the Army. So this was definitely a huge passion of mine to be able to, do something I love, but also support something that he is so deeply invested in.
I just love everything about that. Like, not only are you supporting the horse girlies and guys out there getting their special treats of caffeine when they need it, but you're out there like actually making a difference in people's lives. That is so inspirational, Amanda.
Yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
That's beautiful. So now pivoting a little bit to your newer business, which Joy sent me the link because I am 7 months pregnant as of this weekend. And
yay,
so,
congratulations.
Thank you so much. And she sent me a link, and this company is called Gallop and Grow.
Yes.
And I already placed an order because these onesies are the cutest. Don't tell my in-laws who have already sent me Amazon onesies, but these are the cutest onesies, you guys, with the cutest horsey themes. Tell us all about Gallop and Grow.
Yeah, so Gallop and Grow has my entire heart right now. So my husband and I have been trying to grow our family and have a baby. In August of last year, so August of 2023, we found out we were pregnant in July. However, in August, I had a miscarriage. The baby was diagnosed with trisomy 13. So that was really hard on me. We started trying again, and lo and behold, in January, I found out I was pregnant again. Super excited. In February, once again, I had another miscarriage. With that first one, it's okay. With that first one, though, we had told everybody that we were pregnant as soon as we found out.
Right.
So we had so much support. With the second miscarriage, I didn't really tell very many people, just a few of our closest friends and family. So it was kind of one of those things where when we went through it, it was almost awkward for other people. And it was almost like, okay, well, this is common now. I kind of felt like I shouldn't be upset, and that, nobody was really acknowledging what was going on. So when I was pregnant, I had this great idea to launch a baby pajama brand because I was trying to find really cute bamboo onesies that were equestrian themed, and I really couldn't find any that I loved. So after that second miscarriage, I kind of talked to my husband and I was like, I really want to do this. And he was like, another business? And I was like, why not? Why not add another thing to my plate? I think it's great.
Well, I learned in the first one how to do it. This will be easier.
Exactly. So I literally launched Gallop and Grow within 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, when I tell you guys, I poured my entire heart and all of my emotions into this brand, that is exactly what I did. From the design, I worked with a fantastic designer, and she I spilled what I wanted, and it took us a minute to get exactly my vision, but eventually we got it, and now we have those 2 prints on pre-order, which I love. And then I have 2 new prints that are coming out fairly soon, dressage print. And then we also have a cross-country print.
Oh my God, I can't wait to place another order. This is great news.
So I'm super excited about that. Yeah, they're all bamboo. And with our Rainbow Baby print, $1 goes to Held in Hope, which is another nonprofit organization that supports mothers who are going through miscarriage. The organization sends health kits to OBGYNs, hospitals, midwives, and the alike to make sure that women have the support that they need when they're told they're going through a miscarriage.
That's so beautiful, Amanda. And this really resonates on a very deep personal level for myself. We were trying for 2 years and also had our own bumps along the way. And I hope the best for you and your husband. And I think it's such a beautiful project of positivity that you're pouring yourself into. And I'm so tickled that you joined us today to chat about both Equine Dreaming and Gallop and Grow. I feel so inspired, and I think I don't do enough in the day, clearly now, because you're rocking and rolling, and you're giving back, which it just makes my heart sing. So thank you for not only making delicious coffee and adorable baby pajamas, but really, making the world a bit of a better place. It's amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Honestly, horses really genuinely inspire the entire thing. If it wasn't for the horses, I don't know where I would be today.
Attention, horse owners. Are you looking to help your horse recover with ease after a strenuous workout? Would you like to nourish your horse and their digestive system? If so, try the new Purina Replenimash product. It is much more than a mash. Replenimash promotes hydration, replenishes electrolytes, and supports gastric comfort. Put Purina's research to the test. Stop into your local Purina retailer and grab a bag of Purina Replenimash product.
Coming up now, Jamie, who was out in Kentucky, got to spend a couple of hours at Old Friends Retirement Community for thoroughbreds, and she had never been there before. I was shocked she had never been there before. But she running it right now is John Nicholson, who's an old friend of ours from the Kentucky Horse Park days. He used to run the Kentucky Horse Park, and he actually co-hosted this show one time when Jamie was out, when we lived in Kentucky. We went over there and set up in his office, and he co-hosted Horses in the Morning. That's years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. But John's a cool guy, and here's the interview about old friends.
Well, I am thrilled to be sitting here with the one and only John Nicholson here at the majestic and phenomenal facility, Old Friends. Hi, thank you for having us.
Jamie, it's so good to see you again. This is like old times.
I know. You asked me how Glenn was doing, so I guess he's fine. He's not here, so he missed out.
He did miss out, and we've had so much fun with you and Glenn over the years. I wish he could be here, but we've had fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You're lost, Glenn. You missed it.
That's it.
So you have taken over Old Friends 10 weeks ago. Why don't you kind of tell everybody in your words about what's going on?
Well, this is really an exciting chapter in my life, and I'm just so blessed. Michael Blowen, who started the very concept of Old Friends a generation ago, was ready to kind of step aside, not to step off the stage, but step aside from the management of Old Friends. Well, he and I have known each other since he first came, Jamie, to the horse park at the Hall of Champions, and realized that the idea of creating a sanctuary and retirement home for thoroughbred racehorses and stallions and mares also had the component of people love to come to pay homage to these great horses. And so he credits the horse park with kind of having that idea that gave birth to Old Friends. So he and I have been friends since then. And then last fall we were having lunch, as we often do, and I told him I was really looking for a mission for this chapter in my life and career. And we came together with the idea that I would come and run Old Friends with him. And that's what we're doing. And I'm having fun. This is just the best.
Well, I mean, you're out here with the who's who of the horse racing world, and being from, in Kentucky for so long, you probably watched so many of these horses on the track.
Well, it's just being in the daily presence of greatness. Look out your window and there's Silver Charm, and there's I'll Have Another, and there's Lava Man and Touch Gold and Birdstone, and it's just it just takes your breath away. Not only the horses themselves, but when you think about what they represented in the era of racing they represented, and the great ambassadors they are for the sport now.
Absolutely. As people, I mean, this is a tourist destination now if you come into Kentucky, which is great because guess what? This is a donation necessary venture that you have.
It's a nonprofit, and yes, we and the horses that we serve rely upon donations, and it's very heartening to see how generous people are. But what started with a couple of paddocks and a dream from Michael has now turned into, a multi-million-dollar concern that's
concern.
Concern.
All horses are a multi-million-dollar concern.
Concern is the right word. So we appreciate everybody's generous donation, and a few dollars a day takes care of a lot of carrots.
Yeah.
And a lot of goodies.
And, being a student of Monty Roberts, one of the things he does not encourage us to do when training horses is handing them carrots. And I have 9,000 pictures of me feeding I'll Have Another carrot. So I'll have to send it to him. Say,
well,
look what I did.
Okay, you do that. I'll keep the secret if you want to. But we appreciate everything about Monty, but his admonition against carrots. Sorry.
No, it's not against carrots. It's just hand feeding traits. So,
Okay.
yeah, you can put them in the bucket. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, these guys we're not training horses here. We're just celebrating horses.
Well, that's right. We have a philosophy here, Jamie, that I just love. And that is that these horses have done everything we've asked them to do up until a certain point in their career. And from the minute they arrive here, we do everything they want us to do. It's their turn.
Yeah.
It's their turn to be horses and to be happy. And that's just the philosophy here. And, in aftercare, which is a great component, a great pillar of the thoroughbred industry now that we should all be proud of, there's wonderful approaches that so many different facilities and so many different organizations are taking. Repurposing is brilliant, and retraining and giving second careers are brilliant. We're kind of an appropriate venue for when it's appropriate coming off the track or coming from the stud barn. We take stallions. We have many, many stallions here, and mares who broodmare careers are over as well. Lots of geldings who raced until they were 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 even. So that's what Old Friends does. And we give them the job of being ambassadors.
Yeah.
Ambassadors to the sport of thoroughbred racing.
And the whole idea of aftercare too. So seeing that you're kind of a guy who puts his hands on something and makes it even bigger, do you have any plans for here? Are you going to just relax, or what are you up to?
Relaxing is something I've always had trouble with. I think that Michael and the team here have come upon something brilliant. And we have 2 other farms here locally in Kentucky that are part of the green space of a very nice residential community, and then also the green space of a very nice retirement community. And, there's something that we know, this is not news to us, but how horses uplift people and make people better. And it's it's the latest example of what they have done for us. But I think this concept of horses and people living together and in those kind of settings is something that we will look to replicate not only in Kentucky, but around the country and even beyond that. And that, I think, will be the stamp of Old Friends, and I think it's going to be our kind of brand, what we do for retired thoroughbred racehorses, and I think we can replicate that. And I think that's an example of the further vision of what we're looking at.
Yeah, so being that you are becoming, and the thoroughbred aftercare has grown so much, what is your relationship with, say people that own thoroughbreds now? Are people wanting to get their horses to you, or what's a thought?
Well, that's one of the great things that's evolved over the years are the relationships. I think the two R's, relationships and reputation. Old Friends has earned the reputation of giving extraordinary care, geriatric care, but not only that, but just the whole philosophy of the horse comes first, and that they have earned the right to be here and to really enjoy this phase of their lives, along with the relationships that have been developed as a result of the hundreds of horses that have already been retired here, that we just maintain a constant communication with leaders and players within the industry, and the phone rings often, and we make arrangements when it's appropriate, when we can, when we have room, which is also why we need to grow, and that's an important thing we need to look for in the future, is the acquisition of more land, the building of more Old Friends facilities, so that we can serve more horses.
Yeah. And that's the heart of it, is what it gets down to. Now, I would have to also congratulate you guys, because your rescue has been named one of the Kentucky Derby charities, much like we talked about with Horse and Hound Rescue. And, I'm not going to put any money on your horse, okay?
Well, I know. It's like I'm wishing Horse and Hound good luck, but not too much. We're going to be running against each other on the first Saturday in May. But the good news is that we're both going to come out ahead.
Yeah. Thanks to Churchill.
And honestly, kudos to Churchill for doing this. And I'm sure you've explained to our listeners what they're doing, but to recognize these aftercare facilities, and there are so many good ones, and to give them an opportunity to gain some resources and to participate in all the fun of Derby Week, that is just so cool. And I'm like you, I'm very grateful to them.
So, John, if people want to help out Old Friends, what are some ways they can do it?
Well, first of all, come and visit and take a tour. Our tours are generally like $30 to have a personal meet and greet with all these great horses, and then private tours with legends like Sandy Hatfield from Three Chimneys. We have lots of merchandise you can buy as well. But the primary way that you can help us at Old Friends and help us serve these horses can be found just by going to our website, oldfriendsequine.org. And there's lots of different ways that you can participate with Old Friends and help us help the horses.
All right. Well, thank you, John Nicholson. Thank you for having us here at Old Friends and letting us go meet all these living legends.
It's good to see you, Jamie. Hello, Glenn.
Well, before we get to horses and history, I wanted to mention Cosequin ASU joint and hoof pellets contain quality ingredients to support joint and hoof health and leave out the fillers, molasses, and alfalfa, all while delivering the taste horses love. The colors of our ingredients shine through for a difference you can see. Visit CosequinEquine.com. That's CosequinEquine.com.
Easy, effective, and eco-friendly fly control starts with fly predators. Fly predators are the organic, natural way to dramatically minimize your fly problem. Learn more about fly predators and other Spalding Labs fly control solutions at Spalding, SPALDING-labs.com.
There it is, the call to post for the Kentucky Derby, which will happen this Saturday. It always comes so quick. We cover Kentucky in two different ways in 2 different weeks. It's always so exciting. But today I have a horses in history for you, and this is about the founder of the Kentucky Derby. His name was Meriwether Lewis Clark. And of course, this Saturday is the running, and it's the 150th birthday of the Kentucky Derby, and it is the longest continuously running sporting event in America. It didn't miss any years, even through 2 world wars, multiple depressions, pandemics, and more. It never missed a year. It was begun by Meriwether Lewis Clark, a prominent Louisville citizen who developed the Louisville Jockey Club. Now, he has an interesting story. You think this is going to be boring. It's not. There involves guns and him getting shot and all kinds of stuff. His father was Major Meriwether Lewis Clark, and he was also, yes, the grandson of Lewis and Clark, who the adventurers went across the country. He was the grandson. His father was Meriwether Lewis Clark, who worked as aide-de-camp and was the stepfather-in-law of the famous General Stephen Watts Kearny, the great general who fought in the Mexican-American War, and he was the one that won the California Territory and served as the military governor of New Mexico Territory, where you now live. He was your governor a long time ago. The first one, actually. Clark's mother was Abigail Prather Churchill. Sound familiar? One of the first families of Kentucky who settled 300 acres of land, Louisville, in 1787, 5 years before Kentucky was granted statehood. Now, Clark's father, Meriwether Lewis Clark the Sr., had styled himself. He was kind of a self-styled guy, and he was spoiled by his parents, and he was rather hot-tempered and shallow and selfish. By the way, his son got a lot of those traits. He attended West Point, where he became good friends with General Robert E. Lee. But aside from his brief stint as an aide-de-camp during the Mexican-American War, he wasn't much interested in military life, so he resigned as soon as he could and returned to St. Louis, where he became a successful architect. While on an assignment in Louisville, he met Abigail. And they got married, and they had a lot of kids. So she, unfortunately, died in 1852 while giving birth to her seventh child at the age of 35. So she was busy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, apparently Dad, after she died, pawned the kids off on relatives. He didn't want to have anything to do with them. So Clark went to live with his aunt and her sons, John and Henry Churchill. They had inherited most of the original Churchill property, and they donated the land on which Churchill Downs was built. So that there really was a Churchill. While living with the Churchills, Clark developed a taste for expensive things, including horse racing. He made 2 trips to Europe, and he married twice. Both of his wives died young. He returned from Europe to Kentucky in 1873, where he shared his vision for the city's newest racetrack with potential investors. He was meeting with investors saying, we need a racetrack, we need a racetrack. So he proposed a new upscale facility with a series of races modeled on the Epsom Classics, which he saw in England, and he wanted to do a 2-mile Clark Stakes, the 1.5-mile Kentucky Oaks, and the crown jewel he wanted to do was a 1.5-mile Kentucky Derby. So he leased the land from his uncles and the Churchills, and he raised $32,000 to build a 1-mile dirt oval track. Now, the money ran out, so he had to use loans to build a small wooden grandstand. So he got the track built, but there was no place for people to sit. So he had to borrow money to build the grandstand. He also was particular. He didn't want to do the bookie system for betting that they did in England. So he wanted to do kind of a pari-mutuel betting system. And he installed that. He was one of the first to install that in the United States. Well, while they were building the track, the weather was terrible and there were shortages and it was just bad. But he got it built in time for the first Kentucky Derby in May. And he made the racetrack his life. He was there when the first Kentucky Derby was run. He was at the finish line, and he saw Aristides win, did all of that. But he really became known around Louisville for this track. And he was one that really wanted to have a reputation of having integrity. And racing, not unlike now, was a little corrupt back then. So he was not a fan favorite among horsemen because he was trying to run the track in a ethical way.
For profit.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, in an ethical way. He really valued his integrity, and he wanted ethically. He wanted this to be a well-run track, and he wanted things done right. And he was president of the Louisville Jockey Club as well for about 20 years. So, he actually had a match race in 1878. He was so concerned about the drugs and everything they were using back then that he heard a rumor that in this 4-mile race, as long compared to the races we do now, that there might be a fix-in that they were going to fix the race. So he ordered his security to watch the two barns and had their feed locked up as a precaution. It was the first time this had ever happened.
Oh, wow.
And he dropped by each horse's stable daily to check in. He put so much effort into avoiding any potential scandal that he finished the day unconscious and exhausted with heat stroke. So apparently he was really obsessed by this race. So one horse did beat the other by a really wide margin, and they still estimate he'd been drugged. They still say he'd probably been drugged.
He tried.
So he was known to have a bit of a temper and was a bit touchy with a short fuse, just like his dad. And he's reported to have threatened a prominent breeder at the time, T.J. Moore, with a gun, ordering him off the property and having him knocked him down over a dispute over fees. Apparently they ended up in a bit of a scuffle. Well, Moore went and got his own gun and shot Clark through the door, hitting him in the chest.
Oh, geez.
So Moore turned himself into the police, but no charges were ever brought against him, and Clark recovered. He also threatened others with guns over perceived insults, so he apparently had quite a temper in running his track. He was dedicated to it. He, as I said, spent 20 years doing it. He never took a salary for trying to keep the racetrack afloat. He would often pay the track's debts out of his own pocket, but even that was not enough. The track would become Churchill Downs after it was sold in 1894, and the Churchills were no longer involved in it. He then went on to be a steward, and he was a steward at the track, and then he was a steward at other tracks around the country, but he was no longer involved in the running of the track he started. So he had quite a history. So he also was responsible for not only originating the Kentucky Derby, but he wrote many of the racing rules that are still in force today. He worked for a uniform system of weights and pioneered the stake system. He actually started that. He actually started the American Stallion Stakes, on which the Breeders' Cup is modeled. He also spoke out against betting by officials and reporters. He didn't want officials and reporters to be allowed to bet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he didn't have he had an untimely end. He had a sad end, I should say. He lost heavily in the stock market crash of 1893 and began traveling from city to city working as a steward, but he feared a life of poverty, and he committed suicide with a pistol on April 22nd of 1899. And he's buried next to his uncle John Churchill at Cave Hill Cemetery. So quite a colorful life for a guy who started the Kentucky Derby, the longest running and most well-known 2 minutes in history, was started by this guy who was in the end broke.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
And he tried so hard to be an honest Abe about it all, which I think is so admirable, especially
except for the whole threatening to shoot a bunch of people.
Tomato,
but it was the
tomato,
1800s,
Blenny.
Yeah. People were threatening to shoot each other a lot back then.
It's just a regular Monday.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about the guy who started the Kentucky Derby. And maybe when you watch it this weekend, you'll watch it with a whole new light. But I just found it fascinating. And of course, we'll be talking more about the Kentucky Derby on Wednesday and Friday. I know some of you hate racing, and you can come back to us next week. But well, Jamie will be back Wednesday, so you want to listen to part of it. You can skip the parts where we're talking about the Derby. I know there's a lot of controversy involving racing, but it still is fun to watch. It still is fun to watch the Kentucky Derby and to follow it and to pick your favorites and all of that.
Well, and I mean, for the other girlies out there, who doesn't love an excuse to get all dressed up and drink bourbon?
That's the other thing. You get to wear those hats once a year,
the
right?
Fascinators. Yeah. They're fascinating.
Have you ever been to the Kentucky Derby or
No,
a fancy party?
I have not. I've
No?
not. I don't think I've seen a race in real life ever.
Really? You've never been to a racetrack?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, they have them in New Mexico.
Well, you never know.
Did you follow the Derby when you were in Italy?
No.
No?
Gosh, no.
Okay. I didn't know if you did or not.
No, I didn't really follow a whole lot of what was happening in America when I was over there. It was a nice reprieve, if we'll be honest.
Too much wine and pasta to worry about anything else in the world.
Exactly right, baby.
Well, thank you for filling in for Jamie these two days. We really do appreciate it. Give a plug to your other shows.
Yes, of course. So you can always listen to me over on Sleep Stories for Equestrians, the Show Jumping podcast, and our monthly show on Horses in the Morning, the Quarter Horse podcast.
And auditors, hang on. We're going to have a post show for you. We're going to do some equestrian first world problems. And I have some fun news, too. So we're going to do that in the post show. Tomorrow, coming up on the show, I have a special plan for you. A long time ago for Equestrian Legends, we did a special episode on Gloria Austin, who we mentioned last week passed away recently. And I thought I would share with you that episode we probably did 10 or 11 years ago. And she was one of the most knowledgeable people on horses and carriages and carriage driving, and she was one of the most well-known carriage drivers here in the United States, and spent some time with the Queen and did a lot of things over in England and here in the United States as well. And she was the first one I drove a four-in-hand of horses with. I drove her PREs, and that was terrifying, by the way. So I'm going to play that for you tomorrow, so that those of you that missed it 12 years ago, which is probably 99% of you, she led a fascinating life, and I think you'll enjoy that. We'll play that tomorrow. And then Wednesday, Jamie should be back. See y'all.